Hello everyone, and welcome to the MagM coloring book tutorials. We will be exploring the different coloring techniques you can use to bring your pencil crayon skills to the next level. You're going to need a set of pencil crayons. I suggest a set of 24 or more in order to give you the best variety in color, and of course a handy dandy sharpener. Gotta keep those pencils sharp. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the effect light has with the lantern coloring book page. I'm going to look how to create definition in dark objects, as well as show the effects a light source has on an object. But first, let's choose my colors. I've decided to choose 5 colors for the background, which include a purple, blue, red-purple, turquoise, and dark turquoise. There are 3 different grays for the smoke, and a light blue for the flame. I'm also going to use the same blue in the flames as I am in the blue flowers. I've decided to pick 3 bluish greens for the leaves, a yellow for the center of the flower and the candle, and for the lantern I've picked a dark rich purple and a navy blue. Finally, I'll have my white and my sepia pencils for highlights and shadows. Now that I've picked my colors, I'm going to cover the whole drawing with a light coloring, figuring out where I want to place each color. For the areas that I've chosen multiple tones, I cover the drawing with the lightest tone. I start with the portion that I already know which color I'm going to use: the lantern, the smoke, and the flame, the leaves, and the flower. The background had a lot of pieces, so I cover the background lightly in order to determine where each color will go. I go one color at a time, and once I'm done, I put it aside and move on to the next. Once that is done, I fill the color, pressing harder. For each shape in the background, I'm going to start by outlining the interior of the shape with my navy blue. Then I'm going to fill the rest with the color that I've already assigned to that shape. I press harder to make sure that it's filled with a nice rich color. Once it's filled, I blend in the whole color with the navy with a white pencil, and I pass it over the entire shape. I'm going to repeat this technique for the whole background, defining the edges with the navy blue, filling it in with a solid color, and then blending everything in with the white. I find that the navy blue edge gives it almost a stained glass look to it, and that's exactly quite on theme for this image. Once the background is done, I move on to the smoke. I want to make the flame a nice vibrant blue. So using the blue color, I define the shape with a light shading, adding touches of navy around the wick and the bottom of the flame. I also add a slight amount of blue to the very top of the flame, navy blue that is. I make sure also that there's a light blue in the smoke area around the flame, as the light would affect the smoke. I use an actual picture of a candle to help me a little bit. For the smoke, I create loose shapes using my grays to make it look as though some of the smoke is thicker in some places than others. I try to keep it loose in the smoke, and once I'm satisfied with the result, I blend the entire smoke with my white, pressing hard, pushing the pigments to reduce the harshness of lines that I've created. When the smoke is to my satisfaction, I add the slightest amount of yellow to the candle, concentrating the yellow underneath where the wax is melting, as well as portions at the bottom and a slight bit on the top closest to the flame. I also add a bit of blue at the top of the candle, as if the light is reflecting from the flame itself. Once that's done, I blend everything with my white pencil. Now I move on to the lantern. I first go into the drawing, marking where the blue flame will have a reflection on the lantern. I concentrate the reflections on the inside of the lantern to make sure that it suggests the light is coming from inside to outside. I also put a hint of the blue on the outside edges of the lantern closest to the archways and the portions near the stem closest to the flame. I need to add this blue when the lantern is still light enough. Now that my lightest portion is determined, I'm going in with my navy blue to define my darkest areas. I use my judgment on this and use reference images to help me as well. I like to work one section at a time so that once I have my navy blue in one section, I have a reference point for all my other sections. Once the navy blue is done in the section I'm working with, I go in with my dark purple, not crossing too much into the light blue. As I add the purple, from time to time I'm going to blend it in with my light blue so that it smooths out the transition. I build up the color darker and darker slowly to make sure that I don't lose any details. I want it pretty dark, but on the inside I want to make it so that it looks like the light is coming from the candle. On the exterior portion, which are not affected by the candle, I go about it in a pretty similar fashion. However, I do my final blending with my white pencil instead of the blue. The white will help bring the brightness back out of the purple. When I'm blending for this, I don't go right to the edge over the navy. I just don't want to lose my shadows. Once my blending is done, I go back in with my navy to bump up the contrast by defining those dark edges once again. The blending of colors can sometimes make things a little less visible. Once the lantern is done, I'll move on to the flowers, more specifically, the leaves. Using my darkest green, I define my shadows, making consideration for the light source of the candle and the objects passing over the leaves, which cast shadows onto them. Also, in some of the leaves, I'm going to put a small bit of blue highlight for the leaves closest to the candle. Then I go into the leaves, adding my mid-tone greens and blending everything together with my light green. I then go back into the leaves and add my white highlights where I've placed the blue to bring the blue back out. Before moving on to the flowers themselves, I go in with my dark green to make sure some of my contrast is still there, adding a bit of darkness into the leaves. With that done, I move on to the flowers. I use my sepia to stipple in the dark areas, adding a white highlight near the bottom of the center of the flower and blending it all together with the yellow. Then I use my navy blue from the center of the flower petals and moving up to create the shadows. I go over the edges of the veins as well of the petals to darken them up as well. I want to create a color variation in the petals, so I'm going to add a little bit of purple near the center of the flower and also at the exterior of the petals, though the exterior of the petals is going to be a very light touch. Then I add my highlights with my white. Finally, a blending of the colors on the petals with light blue, the same as the flame, and then I go back in with my navy if I've noticed that I've lost some of the contrast. I repeat this process until all the flowers are done, and with the last flower fully drawn, I'm done. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this brings your coloring skills to the next level. Remember to have fun with your coloring, and remember where your light source is. Please share your finished drawing on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or TikTok using the hashtag MAGAMColoring2022. And with that, we will see you next time. Happy coloring!